Thank you, Arjun and Shankar, for setting the context so well. And some of you might wonder, why are we talking so much about history, about the past? Because it's really important. When we try to take a holistic approach to growing a city, we need to look at the roots. We need to understand the foundations of how this geography, came about to what it is today. And that's the reason why we wanted to take you through a journey of the past and the present. So I've been given the task of explaining what lies ahead and what is next and what is the whole vision that we are painting for the city. So building on what Arjun said, there are so many gaps that I would say in our potential, which is largely untapped. There are so many areas where we are probably seeding growth to other cities and allowing other places to take away industries from us. So we need to start by thinking, how do we approach this whole discussion? We need to have a purpose. We need to have a vision. We need to have a rallying call around this entire discussion that we're having, and that is the outcome of all that is what you see today as Coimbatore NXT. So how do we start doing this? We started with three things. One, we wanted to understand what our aspirations are. Two, we wanted to understand what momentum do we have in place? What are our existing strengths? And Arjun talked about that, Shankar talked about that. And third, given these two, what is it that we want to do as a city? So aspirations. If as a city, we need to close the gap between today's achievements and what our real potential is, how do we go about doing that? If we need to do that, we need to build on our existing momentum. We need to make sure that we leverage our existing strengths, and we need to take incremental moves that help us to capitalize on what we already have. The idea is to make sure that we build on our existing strengths while at the same time we welcome new investments and new opportunities that come into place. And therefore, that leads us to our strategic moves. What do we want to do? How should we take this plan forward? What are the areas that we as a city should be focusing on? When you want to do this, a sort of envisioning exercise, you need to start by benchmarking yourself with the best. And so we started analyzing this and understanding this better. And what you see today before you is not something that we did as part of an event. This is about 15 to 16 months of work that we have put in behind the scenes to make sure to study, reports that were generated with the help of Firebird Consultancy in Coimbatore. I think Dr. Sundaram is in the audience as well. There's so much of work, discussions with McKinsey. There is so much of work that we put behind to understand what is the right way forward. How do we structure this entire discussion? Because it's easy to have a vision, but it's also equally important to make sure that that has a structure and that has a rhythm around it. And we realized, let's start, what are the best people in the business doing? What are the top cities in the world doing? And this is the kind of vision that they had. Obviously, these cities are in a league of themselves. There is no need. These are cities that any one of us would like to go and settle down or even visit. But this gives us an idea as to how these cities really landed there. How do they land there? Because they had clarity of thought. They had a vision that made sure that they knew what their city stands for. And that is what propelled them to get where they are today. So we also need to get practical, right? We are in India. We can't start comparing ourselves to a Toronto or to an Adelaide or to a Dubai straight away. Let's start looking at people who are closer to us, right? Because, I hear this so many times in conversations with Dr. Jairam, right? You need to know who your competition is and understand how you get ahead of this competition. So we started looking at our tier 2 peers. Who are those cities that we have to benchmark ourselves with? Because this decides if you are going to earn that rupee of investment. This decides if you're going to attract the best talent. This decides if you are providing your companies, your businesses in the city with the best ecosystem to grow. And one good thing came out of this, and this is a research report from Savills, which is a real estate consultancy. And Coimbatore, this is not in any alphabetical order. This is not in priority order. It's actually in alphabetical order. So but the good thing to note is Coimbatore is one city that figures in the top list, the top short list of all the 4 parameters, be it infrastructure, be it human capital, be it cost, or be it industry. So we have the base. Now the question is, how do we go about making sure that we realize this potential? And therefore, we said we need to have a mission for the city. This has to define every action that we do for the city. And that mission for Coimbatore was what we wanted to call the next mission. And the next mission is about reimagining the economic potential of the region to make it one of Asia's fastest growing economies through inclusivity and sustainable growth. So that is what we set out for ourselves as an overarching vision for the city, as our North Star. Where do we need to go? Because once that is defined, every activity that we need to do to get there starts falling into place. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Coimbatore Next mission. Now, as I said, we need to structure this. And we decided that this has to be done with clear milestones in place, because this is not wishful thinking. This is not marketing. This is something that needs to happen. And like any true Coimbatore business, we are people who thrive on outcomes, right? You can't go tell a Coimbatore, you can't sell a fluffy story to a Coimbatore business. You need to show them data, you need to show them outcomes, and you need to show them facts. So we started with 3 pillars that would define what next is: visibility, growth, and advocacy. So growth is all about, Arjun was alluding to this as well, how do we define what is growth for a Coimbatore business? Is it that a Coimbatore business can be considered successful if they are growing faster than the industry? Can we consider them successful if they have an X% of market share? Can we consider them successful if they are leading the sector? Can we consider a sector as having firmly taken root in Coimbatore if we have a minimum number of companies in Coimbatore in a particular sector? So we wanted to establish metrics, and we wanted to start working towards that. Visibility. This actually came as a surprise for all of us in Coimbatore, you, me, all of us here. Coimbatore is the center of our universe. We live here. A lot of us studied here. And I think almost all of us work here. But when we go and talk to consultants, when we go listen to conversations from large conglomerates which want to invest, we find that suddenly we're not in that top list anymore. And that came as a bit of a shock for us. We couldn't reconcile ourselves to the fact. But then we realize that's because we sometimes are not putting ourselves in the best light possible always. And it will come as a shocker to you that when I read a lot of research reports, we did a lot of groundwork on this, like I said, we did a lot of research reports, and these research reports painted Coimbatore as a tier 2 city with a largely vernacular population. They don't use top tier social media apps. These are actual statements about Coimbatore that you will see. So we decided that we have to change this. We have to let people know, we have to let the outside world know what this region stands for, what the potential of this region is. And that's when we said visibility is going to be an important thing that we need to do. Advocacy. Nothing that we do is going to happen if we don't bring in the powers to be. The government officials, our elected members, all these people need to come together if we need to make this reality. So we said that's going to be our 3rd pillar, and that will help us to influence policies. That will help us to lobby for the right attention to Coimbatore. That will help us to make sure that we are putting in frameworks in place. And we are thinking in terms of innovation index and an innovation framework that will help our companies to reach the very top. We also recognize that an initiative of this size and scale is not something that can be done. No, this is just a launch event. This is an initiative that has got to run for a minimum of 5 years, ideally at least 10 years or more. So it needs to have sort of fuel for the journey. And that fuel starts with getting the best people who can support everything that we want to do. And that is why we decided we'll have a steering committee in place, which will guide us and tell us how we will take the vision forward. We wanted to have a team that will help execute on the ground, and we have an executive team, executive committee that is going to help roll out a lot of the activities, and I'll talk a lot more about these activities that come. Lastly, we also want to make sure that this is a CI initiative, but we also want to make sure that this is an initiative that's for Coimbatore. This is not proprietary. We want each and every one in Coimbatore to be part of it. You could be doing anything. You could be a professional. You could be, working in a corporate sector. You could be running your own business, SME or MSME or large enterprise. It doesn't matter. But we want each and every one of you to be part of this initiative that is Coimbatore Next. And I was talking about the steering committee. So we put this committee in place because we needed a think tank. We needed this fuel. We needed rocket fuel for the journey ahead, and who better to turn to than the visionaries that are there, right from Mr. Sanjay, Dr. Jairam is here, Mr. Ravi Sam is here, Dr. Nandini, Mr. Jaikumar Ramdas. So we put in a team that will help us make sure that we go the distance, follow the right path, and make sure that we are delivering on what we set out to achieve as a city. And I alluded to this as well. Next has to be inclusive. So every stakeholder in Coimbatore, right, be it academia, be it an individual, be it a student, whoever you are, we want to make sure that you are part of this journey with us, because this is not something that we can do alone. This is something that can work only if the entire city rises up to the occasion and makes it happen. So whatever field you may be in, you could be a potential investor, you could be a part of the government, whatever we are doing, you need to be here with us. You need to work with us to make sure that this becomes a reality. And that's how we started defining the goals for Coimbatore. So how do we define these goals for Coimbatore? What do we need to do and how do we need to go there? So we took a 5-point agenda, and that is what I want to detail out for you now. Number one, we need to scale our local businesses. So most businesses sometimes hit a ceiling, right? They grow well, then they sort of hit an artificial ceiling, and then there's limited growth after that. No, it's just a trickle, if I could call it that. But the same rate of exponential growth that they saw in the initial days tapers off after some time. Why does it happen? What are the reasons that cause that to happen? How do we make sure that our businesses move to higher value-added revenue streams? Because if that doesn't happen, we are going to put ourselves into a worse and worse talent crunch. If you're saying that I can't pay a high salary to people because I work on thin profit margins, then that situation is going to get worse over time. The only way you're going to be able to solve the problem is if you are going to increase your profitability as a business. And again, Arjun talked about a lot of that: branding, IP, all these things need to happen. Going global, putting your business outside of your comfort zone. These are things that need to happen if this needs to become a reality. And there's a lot of expertise, there's a lot of capital that's been invested in Coimbatore over the decades. We can't let that go waste. We can't let that go underutilized. This needs to be well utilized, and this is how we'll make sure that our local businesses are given number one priority. And there's a whole set of programs that we put around it. And digital transformation or internationalization. So these are things that we need to do. What is number two? Is building new businesses. Now, Coimbatore, Mr. Ravi Sam talked about how as a city, we have a huge and rich tradition of entrepreneurship. So there are first generation entrepreneurs, second, third, and even fourth or fifth generation entrepreneurs in Coimbatore. But are we giving these people all the possible avenues that they need to invest and grow? Are they staffing internally within those family-owned businesses without knowing, okay, how do I go ahead and grow to the next level? Those questions need to be answered, and for that, we need to make sure that we provide the best possible experience for our entrepreneurs to enter into a new business, to make sure that they work closely with startups through what we call the Industry to Startup Connect. That's an initiative that we are driving at CII Coimbatore as well. Academia is our strong point, right? There are thousands, tens of thousands of students who come to Coimbatore to study. But how many of them say they want to work for a Coimbatore-based business? They come to Coimbatore to study, or they are Coimbatorians, and after they finish education, what do? They move out of Coimbatore. Why do they want to move out of Coimbatore? Because they don't see career options, in the available business ecosystem here. We need to change that, right? We have other cities coming in and saying Coimbatore is a great place to hire talent from, but if our businesses are not able to make use of the talent that we have here, then what are we doing as a business ecosystem here? So that steps could include enabling access to finance, centers of excellence, clusters and plug-and-play facilities, as well as leadership development, and we'll talk more about that. Number 3, attracting investments is important. We need investments, and Arjun talked about how in FDI we are minuscule when compared to other similar cities. I'm not even comparing ourselves to Bangalore or Chennai, but if you look at it similar tier 2 city, we are far, far lower in terms of investments, FDI investments coming in, and it's not even a drop in the ocean compared to our capability, compared to our potential, compared to our expertise. So we need to change that. And who are those countries and who are those people that we can go after? It could even be SMEs in India. And we started engaging with the big four. We want to engage with the big fours. We've had a lot of discussions with McKinsey. I don't know if Mr. Karthi is in the audience somewhere, but we've had a lot of discussions with them as well. And we want to make sure that this initiative, next initiative, also creates ambassadors who go out and make the business case for investments to come into Coimbatore. It's just not about new investments coming into Coimbatore. We want to say that if you want to partner with a business, think of a Coimbatore business that you want to partner with. Why is a Coimbatore business the best bet that you can make if you're looking to expand your own business, if you want to look at a joint venture partner? All those questions need to be answered. Number 4, we need to promote Coimbatore. If we don't talk about our city, who else is going to do this? Right? Are we doing a good enough job of talking about our strengths? When you go to a European country, say Germany, they take great pride in the region that they come from. There is a lot of identity, there's a lot of ownership that they have because of the region that they come from. But I know we have a strong identity, but are we leveraging that well enough for our businesses? That needs to happen. Again, we're having discussions with a lot of these big fours to get these conversations going. We need to make sure that we are able to generate leads for our companies, because our businesses are going to thrive only when they are in an ecosystem that fosters these capabilities, that fosters these advantages and benefits. And that also includes discussing with government officials or authorities all across the country. Number 5, we can't miss this fact, right? I think Dr. Vinu alluded to some of the social aspects in her opening remarks. We cannot allow this growth to come at the cost of livability. Coimbatore is definitely one of the most, I can say this in the audience, it is the best city to live in. I think all of you are going to agree with me on that. But we can't let growth come at the cost of livability. So we need to have ESG goals, environmental sustainability. We need to have inclusive growth, which is why that is part of our mission statement itself. So we need to make sure that this growth does not come at the cost of livability, and that needs to be an important aspect of how we build this entire narrative. How are we putting Coimbatore Next into action? So I talked a lot about what we need to do, but I also want to talk a little bit about how we are putting some of this into action as well. And let me just start with one example. This struck me when Dr. Ratsababadi was having a conversation with me, and he said, Prashanth, do you have a mission statement? Do you know where you want to go? Do you know where your business has to go? I said, yes, doctor, I know where my business has to go. He said, but do you have it written down? Do you have a proper document that describes where your business is going to be the next 3 years, next 5 years? I said, no, I don't have a document, but I know what I should be doing. He said, if you haven't written it down, then you're not going to be able to do it. So if you're serious about going where you want to go, you need to have a written strategy document. Now, a lot of Coimbatore businesses don't think it's important. They think, I'm too small to have a strategy document. I'm too small to have a vision. Why? That's for the big guys, right? That's for a Reliance or a Tata Group company to have a vision or a mission. My vision or mission is something that I'd put up in a website and then forget all about it, right? But you need to have companies that live that mission, that live that vision. And that's why we thought one of the first things that we need to do, and this is not the only thing, there are a lot of things, but I want to take this as an example, is to make sure that we help put a framework or put a team into place to envision a strategy for our businesses. So we defined it as what, why, and how Next can help. So we have created a template which makes it, and I'll show you a slide in the next click. That tells you how easy it is to actually put an actionable strategy into place. This is a framework from McKinsey. So we know that implementing McKinsey is not going to come easy for Coimbatore company. So we distilled it, we made it simple, and we created a walkthrough presentation which will be shared with all of you. It will be available for download on the website that we're going to launch today. That will help each and every Coimbatore company to make sure that they have a framework as to where they want to go. And this is just an example. This is the outcome of what that slide or that exercise should look like. This is how your next strategy should look like. What is your, the why? The why in a business is very important, right? I mean, if you all know Apple. Why does Apple succeed so well? Because they established the why in the business. Every business knows what they do and how they do it. That's easy. But if as a business you are not able to create a why, then that's the difference between a business that is successful and a business that is at the top of the sector, that is leading the industry where they go. So that is why a why is so important, where values and mission and a vision make a difference. So this is something that will come as an output of the exercise that we do, and we are also putting a team into place that will help our companies. If companies come to us and say, look, this is something I want to do, but I don't know how to go about doing it, and we have people who will help companies to get that framework into place. So like this, we have outlined a whole range of activities, the next calendar, right? And I have put some of them on the slide on various aspects like branding, automation, leveraging IP. All these are activities, and all these are workshops. All these are knowledge sessions. They include a lot of travel visits and everything that come into place to make sure that this becomes reality. Because with Coimbatore Next, we are serious about each and every Coimbatore business becoming the leader in their industry. So literally, we can lead the way to TN's 1 trillion, right? I mean, our state government talks about the 1 trillion goal, and they are taking massive steps for this to happen. But if this has to happen, aside Chennai, Coimbatore has got to play the biggest role here. If Coimbatore does not step up to the plate and say that, look, we will take control of this, we will play our part, we will do more than what we are doing right now, this vision as a state is not going to happen, right? And with all these industries with us, name it, education, wellness, tourism, spiritual tourism, I mean, that's something Coimbatore has become really popular for, engineering, foundry, name it, and we have presence. Then why can't we play a pivotal role in this entire 1 trillion discussion? And I'll explain why and how these numbers look enticing. I mean, these are numbers are numbers, but it does give us direction. So we have tier 1, we are a tier 1 city that we would like to call it, but with tier 2 costs or tier 2 livable parameters. And today we have about 13% of the GDP of Coimbatore, which is about 42 billion out of 320 billion. If we are going to double our GDP contribution, which is important if Tamil Nadu has to hit the 1 trillion, because this has to happen collectively, then just imagine the number that is ahead of us. That's about 260 billion out of a trillion, which means that's 5x the growth for us. This sounds crazy. It sounds audacious, which is why we have audacity as a theme for our presentation as well, right? That's what Arjun said. He said audacity because we are audacious enough to think that we will actually do it as a city, and that's the potential that we have. And our job market is also growing massively. So we have like a 28% growth year on year according to latest data from Naukri. This is September data. And if we improve on this rate of growth, we will also make sure that we are able to become a real talent hub, because job creation also needs to go hand in hand with the GDP growth. So that's again a 5x kind of growth that we can see. And I want to illustrate this example with just one industry, the pump industry in Coimbatore. We all know that Coimbatore is a pump capital. It is visit. I mean, you talk to anybody and say, oh, can I buy a pump from Coimbatore, or I know you guys make the best pumps in the country. But are we really cornering this market? Are we really tapping into this potential? And let's look at some data. We are less than $1 billion out of maybe a couple of billion in India, and a global market size which is about 67 billion today, and we shall hit about 95 billion by 2030. We are not even 1%. We are not even scratching the surface. So much needs to be done. If we really need to call ourselves a pump capital, then there is so much more potential that we have. And this is just one industry that we can think of. In closing, I really want to make this a call for action. Please be a believer in Coimbatore NXT. Embrace this audacity. Let's all be audacious and take up this goal. Please ask how you can get involved. This can't happen if this is not something that 5 people, 10 people, 20 people can do. No, it requires a city to come together. So we want each and every one of you to please get involved. And this is something that is not just for me, CI, or the CI leaders here, but this is for you. This is for each and every person in Coimbatore. So please be a next believer and join us in this journey. It is audacious, but let's make it happen. Thank you.